Hey guys, welcome to Garage Tech. Today I'm going to let you into a little secret. I think I have found out who's Father Christmas. Don't tell your children, but Father Christmas, he's the postman. It must be him. He comes in with a red van, he's dressed in red, and leaves lots of nice goodies through the letterbox. As it happened to me today, I've received from Pi Supply the Pi Supply switch, which was crowdfunded in 2013, around about April. It comes in as a very nice self-assembling kit, and I'm very curious to see how to assemble it and how to connect it to the Pi, program it, and finally free the Pi from not having a power switch. It comes in really handy when you have a headless configuration for your Pi. But without further ado, let's move on to the table and start assembling it. And let's start by looking into what's inside the bag. So let's open it up. Nice frustration-free bag. There are lots of components in here. Comes with a sticker and another sticker from Pi Supply. Very nice. Let's put them on a side. So it's got the PCB on which the micro USB is already been pre-soldered on, simply because this would have been a fairly tricky component to solder in. Let's see if I can focus on the camera. Come on, camera. Yeah, no? Yes, okay. So, and on the PCB we find the URL for Pi Supply, and it says that it is Pi Supply switch version 1.1. And on the silk screen there is all there are all the components pictured, so that it's very easy to know where things are to be going. The PCB and the components are all through hole to make it easier to assemble it, and there are instructions online that I will follow to do the assembly. And so we have one capacitor, two buttons, one relay, cable, bunch of resistors, couple of diodes, two header pins. These are two transistors. Oh, another button, so it's three. An LED, another resistor, and a USB connector. Oh, and lastly, a very nice flat USB cable. Very nice. So let's go onto their website, see what the resources are, and so which resources have they made available, and then let's start with the soldering. And as I said earlier, we're going to be following the Pi Supply switch assembly instruction from their website. They're suggesting to start with the resistors, then do the diodes, then do the transistors, then the capacitor. Well, actually first the LED, then the capacitor, then the relay, the buttons, the header, and finally the USB connector. So we're going to follow that exactly, and effectively all it says is really to start with the low profile components first, and then move your way up to the tallest components. First of all, we're going to need to bend the resistors legs, and I'm going to show you how I do it. And what I would generally do is, with a pair of pliers, bend to a right angle the leg of the resistor. Now, first of all, though, depending on which PCB we're using, then you kind of need to measure it on the PCB, whereas that you should be bending the legs to make it really tight and nicely right angled. So more or less that's what we're going to be doing here, and I'm going to be putting the pliers directly, come on webcam, there, directly onto the pad, and then bend the leg to a right angle, like so. Okay, and then I'll do the same with the other one, with the other side. Get the leg and bend it to 90 degrees, and that should be the end result, which should be nicely fitting into the PCB. So this is resistor 1, which is 22 kilo ohms, and there it went. Should be effortless, and it should look like this when it's on the PCB. Hold on. Like that. So obviously the way we know this is a 22K, it is because it is red, orange. Red meaning 2, orange meaning how many zeros, so it's 2, 3 zeros. I'm going to do them all now and show you what the end result is. This is how it should look like once all the resistors are in place. And some people do bend the legs outwards or inwards to keep the resistors in place once they're soldering them. I sometimes use a bit of blue tack to fix the component in place just for the time that I'm soldering it. It's gonna take a lot of blue tack in this case, so I'll probably just going to try and keep them all together and put them on the table. And that's one of the reasons why you put the low profile components first, so that you can do just this. So I'm going to get ahead and solder them. In some cases it's actually quite practical to use a little sponge underneath, so that if there are any other components already on the PCB, as in the case of this micro USB connector, then you can still kind of level up all the other components as you just gently push them down onto the sponge so that you can solder them. If you're really new to soldering, this board may be slightly tricky, as the pads are actually rather tiny, and sometimes the spaces in which to solder are quite narrow. So if you're really new to soldering, you may actually want to practice a bit of soldering before attempting this. But otherwise, it's not rocket science. So I'll just go ahead and finish the resistors and move on to the next components. The resistors are all in place, all soldered onto the PCB. So it's now time to use the pliers, the side cutters, sorry, to cut the excess of the legs. And as you do so, don't go straight flat on the PCB, but just leave a tiny bit of margin, which I'm not able to show you yet, but hold on a second, I'll cut it and then I'll show you. And there, that's how much I left on the PCB, just around about 1 millimeter or so. I'll finish them all and now move on to the next component. With the resistors out of the way, it is now time to move on to the diodes and the transistors. And with regards to the diodes, and the same will go for the transistors, they have we have to respect a specific direction in which they will have to be installed. And let's start with the diodes. And as from the PCB, it really is foolproof. You have to put this little silver stripe of the diode as it is pictured on the PCB. So stripe goes here for both diodes. These diodes are same value, so there's no problem in mixing them up. And with regards to the transistors, the same happens. So on the silk screen of the PCB, you have a drawing. Come on. I can never quite get, yes. Which reminds you where the flat surface of the transistor, which is this one, goes. So that we install them like this. Hold on. Like so. And as for the transistors, they're both the same, so again, mixing them up will not be a problem. I'll go ahead and fix them on and solder them up. And you really want to be careful with the transistors, because you can easily weld solder two pins together, as it happened to me here. So very careful on how much lead you're putting in on these pads, because they're very, very narrow and close to each other. So I'm going to go ahead now and remove the excessive lead, the lead in excess. I've already gone ahead and cut all the legs of the diodes and of the transistors. And after I've done this little fix, I'm going to go ahead with the rest of the components. You should be able to verify that your transistors aren't actually making a short circuit with some dodgy soldering by using a multimeter set in diode mode. And if you go on the legs of the transistors to adjacent ones, as far as it doesn't actually show you something like this, then it means that your soldering was good. So what I did was to go from this to this, this to this, and the same on the other transistor. As far as there are no short circuits, then you've done a good job. The next thing up are the capacitor and the LED. With regards to the LED, the long leg goes onto the circular hole, which is shown on the PCB. So let's focus again. There. So the long leg goes on the circular hole here, whereas for the capacitor, we have a tiny plus next to this resistor, and that's where the plus of the capacitor goes, this is the negative, so the short leg of the capacitor should go towards the diodes, like this. I'm gonna put them in. Maybe this time I will in fact use some blue tack for the capacitor and the LED to stay in place whilst I'm soldering them. If it is a bit of a tight spot, it is to do with the diodes and the diode and the resistor adjacent, which aren't leaving too much room, so just gently push them out so that you can squeeze the capacitor in place. And the LED goes here. Like that. So I'm probably going to need to use the blue tack just to fix the LED in place, like this, so it stays nice and flat on the PCB, whereas the capacitor, it's really not going anywhere. So let's do them. Now that the capacitor and the LED are in place, we're going to move on to the relay and the buttons. So the buttons are going just very easily here, and the relay, again, there are not many ways that this can be installed on the PCB. It's got 6 legs. They are asymmetric, and so obviously they're gonna go here. So I'm gonna go ahead and fix the buttons and the relay, and we're nearly finished. And the buttons and the relay are now in place. There is really not much to cut off from the switches. In fact, there is nothing to do to cut at all. There is a little bit from the relay, so I'm gonna go ahead and trim it. And now what we need to install is the USB connector, which goes like this, and the 2-pin header, which is on the other side. So for the header, probably good idea again to use a bit of blue tack to keep it firmly in place, like this. Don't put the blue tack so much onto the header, because otherwise you're going to be touching one of the pins, and if anything, that's going to smell bad. So let's try and just put the blue tack on any component that you're trying to fix with the blue tack firmly just on the body and not on the connectors. With regards to the header here, if you have one of those regulated soldering iron, you're probably going to want to have a bit more power to put the these 2 pins. And there it is. All seems to be in the rightful place. So we can now move on to testing it and then edit the code which will make it functioning as expected, so that our Pi will be headless with power switch.